Good morning, everybody, and the time is 10 o'clock, the 20th of November 2025. This is the Economy, Infrastructure and Communities Oversight and Scrutiny Committee. Jacob, do we have any apologies?
Yes, thank you, and good morning to the committee. Apologies received from Councillor Bagley and Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, thank you. So we are moving on to item 3, the minutes from the 17th of November. We will have to defer the signing of these minutes, and I invite Jacob to say a few words.
Yes, so obviously agendas are required to be published 5 clear days before a meeting as per the Local Government Act 2000. And due to the short distance between the 2 meeting dates, the last agenda was published on the 12th, which means, unfortunately, it'll have to be deferred until the next meeting in January.
Thank you for that, Jacob. And we move on to item number 4, a petition for Protect Our Town from Overdevelopment. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to speak. And I now invite the petitioner organiser and local member, Councillor Jeremy Pert, to speak on the issue.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, councillors. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to committee about some of the concerns regarding the position within Stafford Borough, albeit I don't think it's just Stafford Borough. I think it's many of the other districts and boroughs across Staffordshire about the sheer volume of development being proposed that will fundamentally affect our communities. I don't want to make this an Eccleshall-only discussion, notwithstanding the 118,000 people who have viewed the petition and the 5,000 plus people who have signed it. We could talk about the fact that Eccleshall has taken in the last 15 years the most development of all the key service villages. Now that's those areas designated for development in Stafford Borough. And it has built 337 homes in the last 15 years on an original base of 1,200 houses, with many areas not taking anything like that. But this isn't about a parochial issue in Eccleshall. This is about ensuring that we don't change detrimentally the character and nature of our very special rural communities. Well, actually any communities across Staffordshire, in fairness. I don't want to talk about planning matters in terms of whether it is a right or a wrong in terms of the position we find ourselves in, because I don't think that is a decision for the county council. I'm sure everyone appreciates the concerns raised in local communities by some of the proposals coming forward regarding development. 1,500 houses are proposed in the Eccleshall area on top of the 1,500 that are already there. So a near doubling of the size of Eccleshall by speculative development, which is exactly what we're talking about. And as I say, I don't want to talk about the planning matters. What instead I want to focus in on is the issues that relate to the county council that are in the county council's gift. And to ensure that the county council is not complicit in the wanton destruction of our communities. So I'd like to preface my comments this morning with an example. As part of the 337 houses that have been built in the last 15 years in Eccleshall, there was an estate built with 138 new houses. That estate had a sustainable drainage system that took a balancing pond and changed the flows of how water flowed historically in the Eccleshall area, adding to the existing flooding within Eccleshall. The County Council, several years later, having recognised the flooding of property, particularly on the stone road at the bottom of the hill within Eccleshall, which is built in a basin, there's a hill and then the water flows down to the bottom of the hill. But the County Council had to spend £250,000 to resolve the flooding that was caused by inadequate drainage to this site, and that was adding to the flooding that was already there. So my point, and it's a direct example, is that there is a cumulative impact of development, and someone needs to come up with a robust way of determining what that cumulative impact is, so that applications are not permitted which add to the problems that are already there. Instead, as a minimum, we need to see the resolution of those long-standing issues. So that's my first and second ask, to assess cumulative impact creatively and resolve existing community capacity issues. My second point is I want to make is in relation to flooding, but it also touches on Eccleshall High Street. Eccleshall High Street is one of the thriving centres of commerce within the local area. There are many who do a lot to try and maintain its position in terms of retail, because you only have to go round some of the other local areas to see that retail is struggling. Now, in the case of Eccleshall, unless you give me more parking, there is no opportunity. Unless people are going to use Shanks's pony to creatively to create additional footfall in the shops, because a new customer in the shops needs to park, and in so doing displaces an existing customer, because there is a fundamental lack of parking within the local area. Unless these applications that are coming forward, one by one, fundamentally address some of the shortfalls in facilities, whether that's doctors, car parking, the width of the high street that snarls up on a very regular basis, or putting more water through ancient culverts that are already under strain, then frankly we are all going to spend time mopping up, if you excuse the pun, the failings in the development system. Developers will just get away with building where they want to build and ignore the fundamental impediments that are already there. In the main, the development industry's model is about building and they're getting their cash out and doing it all over again somewhere else. Instead, someone needs to be the custodians of community. The final example I want to use this morning relates to highways. The concerns I have with highways is that there are already some fundamental difficult junctions and areas. May not be within half a mile of the site being proposed, but within several miles. The danger created is that increasingly more and more stretch and strain is being put on already stretched resources, and at some stage that makes everything fall over. A couple of examples. If you look at Creswell and Great Bridgeford, they're already pinch points for traffic, and throwing more traffic from Eccleshall through to those areas, through to the motorway, is not going to help resolve capacity pinch points. Equally, if you look at some of the junctions, Green Lane and Cross Butts in Eccleshall, they're already difficult and dangerous junctions with poor visibility. I've already mentioned the width of the high street as well. My points are broadly that the County Council has a responsibility to think outside of the narrow site-specific planning application and model the wider impacts and flows and the cumulative impacts, and not just reactively need to spend money after the fact because of the detrimental development many years later. Take, for example, the capacity in the local secondary school feeder system. In Stafford, we are already at capacity. The backup secondary school is also at capacity. Now, we could decide to build a new secondary school in Eccleshall to resolve that and other problems, but now we've changed the historic character and nature of the settlement, something not done in centuries before. For the place voted best village in Staffordshire last year, due to its size and charm, are we really prepared to do this? My point in broad terms is that with the requirement to build, baby, build, as is the phrase coined at the moment, is that we are creating a pressure cooker that is going to take many years to resolve. We absolutely need to see the infrastructure first. It needs to be well balanced so that the relevant infrastructure is built and put up to resolve the problems that are there. But we also need to see the funding flow. Stafford has seen 40-odd million pounds of development and also a bit into stone, public money go into those areas. If we are to take significant development, we need to see some of the funding also flow into our communities that are scheduled to take some of this development as part of a structured plan rather than a one-sided existential threat. To be clear, no one in Eccleshall is saying with their heads in the sand, we don't want any development. But it has to be proportionate and it needs to be balanced against the infrastructure needs that are already there and are masked. Unless the developers recognise that this is required and that there is adequate funding that resolves those masked issues, then frankly we're just going to destroy our rural communities. And we will be remembered for generations to come as the barbarians at the gate who threw open the gates for our communities to be ravaged. So the recommendations I'd like to put forward this morning to committee are as follows. 1, that the County Council in its response to planning applications on flooding, surface water or highway flooding, flood risk, schools and highways, in pursuing the statutory duty the County Council has, provides some very strong, evidence-based, robust arguments as to why certain planning applications are acceptable and not others, taking into account the widest area and cumulative impacts. 2, to provide locally based evidence covering settlements that can be given to developers to demonstrate what fundamental needs must be addressed prior to any building of any housing applications. So not just infrastructure first, but covering the resolution of known issues, capacity issues, and known community drivers like health centres, bypasses, investments in facilities. And I personally would be more than happy as a local county councillor to put work into creating and coordinating those infrastructure requirement requests so they are in one place and can be given to developers so that that is a clear evidence-based document that could be taken into account in planning application determination. And finally, that the County Council is extremely robust when responding to developers and planning application consultations, so that we are not left picking up the pieces for many years to come. Maybe we create a community bond so that that piece of roundabout that isn't fit for purpose and needs to be resurfaced many times within just a few short years is not paid for by the public purse, but is actually paid for by the developer. This might share out the gain from development, as part of the problem today is that the balance is too one-sided in favour of landowners and developers, and not those communities taking the development. There has to be a better model, as this model is fundamentally broken, and just lumping more houses on more houses is just not the answer. We have a much more significant role to play here as community leaders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pert. Normally in a petition you do have 2 speakers, so I did allow you a lot of extra time there. First of all, can I confirm that you've had enough time to present your argument?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I'd like to add, well, you've actually put it quite nicely that this planning for houses isn't actually the remit of this council. So I'd like to remind everyone, let's keep it to things that we do actually have some control over. And I open the floor to questions now. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I know this is a major issue in South Staffordshire. It's speculative applications going everywhere right now, especially in Brood, that area right by me. And there's nothing much that can be done right now because I know my planning chair in the district, and he's working with the planning officers, and basically their hands are really cuffed because they're trying to find every little way to try and stop these applications coming through, either through is there enough, is there a GP around there, is there a school, how much, there's the demand, and also flooding, that which comes onto county council remit, is that we can, as a council, recommend, go to the officers, can you look at this area, what's the flood risk, is it a high risk area, and that advice can go to the district and the planning officers, and that can be looked at by the planning officers with the application, and that can potentially stop housing developments. So I can understand your point where we do have a part in actually stopping some, well, giving evidence to these planning officers like, oh, this area actually could not be fit for a planning application. So I do think we do need to work with our officers, all our, as county councils, we need to work with our, if there's a planning application in your area, have a look. And of course, you're going to have pressure from your residents, of course, I'm sure everyone is, that we need to talk with our officers, say the flooding team, look at this area, is there a high risk? And if there's a high risk, that recommendation can go back to the district, and then hopefully something can be done. It's not much of a question, but I know we're playing a part in, we need to do our part in getting recommendations.
Chair, can I come back through you? Thank you for the point. I think you're exactly right. You know, the planning function, which is a district and borough function, is a strategic function if done properly. You know, I think there is a gap in a few districts and boroughs, as we are seeing. And that's being tested. I think what I'm suggesting here is if the county builds a strategic capacity model and a strategic infrastructure paper which says by areas what our community aspirations are, I think that potentially then ensures that if we do take housing, communities do benefit as well. It addresses the point about, you know, you need to sort out the flooding here first before you build a house.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Pert, for the introduction of the petition. I think this all goes back to local plan, doesn't it? And having a valid local plan that has been fed into by all the partners, including the County Council. That's where flooding matters come into. There's a number of issues in Newcastle over land that has been put forward into a local plan. As colleagues said from staff, it's a hot issue, isn't it, which residents are concerned about. 500 homes here, 800 there, floodplains, all sorts of things. And I think we all need to authorities need to play a part in making sure the local plan is up to date. Now, I'm not aware of the situation in Stafford, but we do know that the government want to build, which is the phrase they've used, haven't they, this new Secretary of State, and enforce more houses into areas, into districts. For example, in Newcastle, that's an extra 2,000 homes on top of the local plan, which is just going through. So, question to Jeremy is your local plan at the borough up to date? Because I know you're a borough council as well. Why isn't that giving the protection required? And do you think that the county council fed into that local plan or the next iteration? Because sometimes an irritation, isn't it, the local plan? Of that plan and anything that the county council can do to help you and your residents to ensure that sites don't get put in there if they are flood risk, if they're overdevelopment and highways issues, which you talked about, which are the key issues to make a development sustainable.
Through you, Chair. In terms of directly answering that question, the Borough Council in Stafford hasn't reviewed its local plan in the last 7 years, which is a statutory requirement. With the doubling of housing targets, which was a central government issue and making them mandatory, they don't have a 5-year land supply either, shortly requiring it needing to be a 6-year land supply as of July of next year. So frankly, that is one of the reasons we're seeing this volume of speculative applications. But we've seen the strategic planning function become very much a tactical function. And what Cornwall have done in response is to create a strategic infrastructure plan as an interim planning document, which broadly is used as a bridge between where you are today, which is no local plan, and where you want to get to. In some ways, I'm trying to get the County Council to play a part in that, because then those applications where we know it'll create more flooding or will cost millions in terms of upgrades, in terms of sewers and things like that, can actually be avoided. It's not about no development, it's about getting them in the right places.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Baker.
Thanks. Just one more further question, because I know this petition has gone to the district, the borough also. What has their response been and what have they said about it?
So the district cabinet responded to this petition, and they clearly have seen these issues and understand the issues, and we're encouraging them to fast track their new local plan as quickly as they can. I think this is a priority for them, but until we actually get far enough along the process to see a plan which is sufficiently far along in the process that it can be taken into account in decisions, then all of our communities remain at risk.
Okay, I think that's a good part to go on to the next part of this agenda, which is we are now going to invite Mark Parkinson, the Head of Planning and Enabling, and Councillor Martin Murray, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, for their views on the matter.
Thank you, Chair. So I've read the petition in great detail, and I've been through the metrics in there, usefully sort of set out in terms of you know, the volume of development that's gone on in the past, and it's now speculatively coming in either as applications lodged or pre-application type discussions. So I've tried to sort of be objective and go through you know, all the policy documents to sort of understand, you know, you know, how much weight to put to the petition. So, for example, you know, one of the starting points was the plan for Stafford Borough. I'm looking at part 2 here, which goes from 2011 up to 31, which sets out the strategy and the settlement boundaries, particularly for settlements such as Eccleshaw. I'm also looking at the Eccleshaw Parish Neighbourhood Plan, 2011 up to 31, which is a very good document, so well done to communities there. I'm a big fan of that as a planning tool. And I'm also looking at the what was the Stafford Borough Local Plan 2020 to 2040, which recently, you know, the decision was made by that council to not carry on that plan and to start the process again. So objectively looking at those documents and looking at the, you know, the scale of development, you know, I'd have to sort of agree that the scale of speculative development is too much. If you look at what, you know, what's gone on before, I think the neighbourhood plan looked at about 250 type, you know, houses over that period. The petition, I think, sets out a number that they've actually had 350, if my memory serves me correctly. You know, to then just sort of have come out of nowhere, you know, 1,200, 1,500 type dwellings or new homes, that's such a big strategic growth option for that tier of village. It just wouldn't be right. It can't be what government are wanting. You know, I understand that there'll be, as you know, as the petition set out, some development and it has to be done right, but it needs to be supported by the right level of infrastructure. And the neighbourhood plan is very good in that respect. It sets out particularly, you know, well in terms of aspirations around education, amongst other things, and they've also got some aspirations around highways and road infrastructure, you know, which needs to be looked at, which means you can't just rush into a big strategic growth without understanding where, you know, the residents, that community, think that village needs to be over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I think, you know, I come to the conclusion that, you know, I need to roll my sleeves up, and the cabinet member is going to have to parachute me into that community, working with the parish council at the back of the neighbourhood plan. It sets out under their section 10 some aspirations around plan delivery and other factors, and it talks very clearly about wanting to have a strategic relationship with the borough council and the county council to look at infrastructure and plan-led growth. So I think now is a good time to sort of enact on that particular aspiration within the plan and that policy, and get myself involved, bring in borough council colleagues along to sort of come up with, you know, a bit of an interim solution for the community in terms of the time it takes for the sort of plan-making process to catch up with it all. So I think it's very clear to me what needs to be done. You know, the sentiments and the main thrust of the petition I agree with, and I'll hopefully, if the community parish council takes me up on that offer, and Councillor Pert's happy enough to sort of, you know, liaise and set that in motion, hopefully we can sort out the mess. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Murray?
Yeah, thank you. I have to agree with everything that's been said. The impact we are putting on all of our rural communities and town centres and city centres even is going through without any forethought from central government. From London, they look at a map and they see a lot of open space and go, that's nice for some housing, and plonk it on in. It has come from successive governments with a huge housing plan, made even worse by the current one, with 300,000 homes per year building. What's even more concerning is the proposal to remove certain statutory rights from local government on planning and to bring it into central government, which in essence means they can override larger projects through central government, ignoring the will of local democracy, local people's views, the impact it will cause on areas they have little to no knowledge about. Our work has to do, and we'll absolutely fully support to working to make a new updated forward housing planning document, because it is far, far out of date, and especially with new legislation and targets coming on in. Flood risk is immense. The flooding has increased dramatically because of building. Water has to go somewhere, and if you cover the land, it has nowhere to soak, and it pushes it further down. We are causing mass problems we've already seen. Stafford town itself has huge flooding. I've noticed over the last 20 years how that has exponentially increased as the housing has been built. Dread to think what it'll do to a lovely area like Eccleshall. It will be impactful. One thing we must ensure, though, is that all levies are applied, that these large building companies, corporations, pay their share for the infrastructure that comes forwards. Our taxpayers should not be responsible to be paying for roads, schools, playing fields. We have community infrastructure levies and funding for this. We must make sure that that is collected in full at time, and works that are required by large housing developers to do the road infrastructures and pay to supply the infrastructure that is required, from our playing fields to our hospitals, care facilities, schooling, is fully brought forward. And that takes the forward plan, which I think we must push forward together. This belongs within local planning as it still exists this day. It will be changing in the coming years, as we know, with devolution. But my bigger fear is the changes central government are putting to local planning, where our voice will be removed. And I think a lobby movement to central government to actually state, look at our land and put housing where it belongs, could well be required. This needs to go back to the planning area to work out a long-term strategic plan, and that they'll always have our full support, and long-term projects and planning to protect the areas that need to, and the funding to be given so the infrastructure can be built.
Thank you for that. I'm opening the floor up for any questions. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you very much for that. That's great. I come from the Cheadle area, and I'd like you to look at our area as well. We're one of the areas that's, I was at a meeting the other day because I'm a borough district councillor as well. We've actually hit our targets in Cheadle. In fact, we're slightly over, and they still want to put some more on us. So I would like, I believe Martin's coming over anyway, and I gather, but I think it'd be beneficial. I think you mentioned in your statement that the local county councillors are on that trip with you, because how I've been led to believe you're meeting the district councillors, and some of the district councillors are not from the areas that you'll be shown around. So I do think it'd be beneficial to have a local council from the local area with you, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Tagg, please.
Thank you. Cheadle's quite happy to take some of our housing from Newcastle if you want, if you're oversubscribed. That's a joke, we don't really hear. But I think it's... be careful what we wish for. No, I think the County Council's position, obviously, I know is when in the Newcastle plan, which is about to be completed, is and the County Council participated in the design of that, inputted views on highways issues, on flooding issues, and I think that is the right thing to do. And I think as Stafford moves forward, that needs to be the work that takes place. And I think your division, Jeremy, seems to be a pressure point. There are pressure points in my borough, there are pressure points in other boroughs and districts as well, but yours seems to be something which is, and it was a big issue in the recent election there, wasn't it? It has made the local media around the area, so I think it's right that we concentrate on that one. The only thing I would say is, from the County Council position and the position put forward by the portfolio holder, is we, as a County Council, are landowners and put land forward. And I would just remind members about the decision which was taken in July to sell a piece of land in Newcastle Borough, which has got flooding issues, capacity issues, highway issues, and was refused at outline planning application by Newcastle Borough Council, but was overturned in an appeal. That was sold, obviously, for 100 and odd houses. And so I think we need to practice what we preach as well, and think of some of the land holdings that we put forward, trying to create homes and and opportunities for people, but on bits of land which create issues in the future. That's under our responsibility as a county council, because we are the landowner, and that was put forward. It was in Hoon Avenue in Crossheath, in the town. And that, I think, was, if we practice what we preach, perhaps we shouldn't be bringing land forward which hasn't got the facilities around it, which hasn't got the highway structure, and hasn't got the flooding, has got flooding issues that haven't been mitigated, in my view, as well. So we just have to be careful, I think, on that. But I think, from my point of view, the County Council does play a key part in local plans, and that's what it needs to do in Eccleshall, and to alleviate the problems which are coming through speculative development at the moment, but when the local plan is in place, managing those housing allocations that have been put in there. And as you say, Councillor Purton, as I said earlier, that's increased massively because of this government's build attitude.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome the comments of committee and of the Cabinet member, and I certainly agree with the comments relating to the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which will effectively silence communities, which is a disastrous place to be in terms of democracy. I certainly would like to take up Mark on his proposals to help provide that bridge to take us from where we are to where we need to get to. So thank you for your time this morning in committee, and appreciate the thought that's gone into the responses and input.
Thank you for that. Well, as a committee now, we have to put something forward. So the options we have in front of us is no further action, to convene a working group or other mechanism to investigate the issue, or to refer the matter directly to the Cabinet member, which is here. Does anyone have any suggestions of... Councillor Bentley.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Has the Cabinet member got, would like the Cabinet member to take that forward?
I think already, if we already said that we were going to get involved, and if the Borough Council come back to get full involvement with the planning, then we can solve this going on forward as much as we can at local level. A lot of this belongs within local planning, within borough planning, but it does need our full involvement with it, and that offer has been made and will be made stronger going forwards. And I think that's where this at the moment lies.
I believe Councillor Tagg.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible way forward. I think the portfolio has accepted that you take that on board, work with the district and planners to see if they can alleviate some of the issues that are coming up in Eccleshall. So I think that's the second recommendation. The third recommendation is that the Cabinet member take this up with the relevant people. That was the third one. Third one, yeah.
If I may, if it's not taken up fully at a later date, then we'll bring this up further. But let's take it, I think, where it belongs right now. Let's work as partners with the Borough Council, with the Parish Councils, get their views in and do long-term strategic planning together in the land and the forward impact building can have. And that takes a collaborative work as partners to get a future plan and a forward plan built together.
Okay, so we'll just run through what has happened. We've invited the petition organiser to present his petition, which he has done. We have considered and deliberated over the evidence given, and it seems as though we have decided to go with option 3, to refer this to the Cabinet member. Can I have somebody to move that motion, please? Yes, and a seconder. Thank you. Finally, I would like to highlight that in the findings of this committee and any necessary recommendations for action will be formally reported at the next available meeting as required by our constitution. And I would like to thank you, Jeremy, for coming, and we will move on to item 5, which is Employment and Skills Strategy Annual Update, and that goes to Councillor Murray.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair and members of this committee. It is both a privilege and a responsibility to stand before you today to present the annual update on Staffordshire employment, skills strategy and the progress of our strategic economic and skills delivery plan. This is not just a report, it's a story of resilience, ambition, opportunity for every resident of our county. Our vision for a future-ready Staffordshire. To imagine a Staffordshire that's not only thriving today, but prepared for tomorrow. A county that attracts investment, fosters innovation and delivers inclusive growth. That's our vision, and to achieve it, we are driving 5 strategic priorities. Promoting Staffordshire's identity, no longer allowing it to be the forgotten county, but to make our county a magnet for investors and visitors. Revitalising our town centres, breathing life into our local economies and growing the visitor economy. Unlocking the growth along strategic corridors from the A5500, Ceramic Valley, down to the Central Edge and the West Midlands Interchange. Empowering residents with skills for better paid jobs, tackling the brain drain Staffordshire has suffered from in the past, and ensures inclusive prosperity for everybody. Driving enterprise and innovation, supporting business, entrepreneurship across urban and rural communities. Purpose of the recommendations. The committee are asked to note Staffordshire's ongoing commitment to economic growth, reviewing emerging priorities, consider recent employment and skills delivery highlights and recommend a further action. Annual updates will be provided for scrutiny. Following the May 2025 elections, the Council has reviewed its economic strategy. The committee is invited to comment on the emerging priorities and their impacts on employment and skills. Despite the review, employment and skills activities have continued to support Staffordshire's economy. Our emerging economic priorities. 1. To place promotion and investment attractions, enhancing Staffordshire's identity and to attract investors and visitors. 2. To make our town centres vibrant, to increase the visitor economy, both local and national. Revitalising town centres will grow our visitor and investor economy. Infrastructure and corridors, focusing on strategic corridors. The A5500, the Central Edge, increasing still with Ceramic Valley through to Junction 16. The West Midlands Interchange, the whole I-54, again coming along that Central Edge. It's a huge project with huge, huge potential. Talent, skills and inclusive growth. To address this brain drain we have seen in the past is to empower residents with skills for better jobs. And 5, enterprise and innovation. Support entrepreneurship, innovation for both urban and rural areas. So we encourage the startups, the micro business to become to an SME and to get the global corporations to invest and build in our county. Staffordshire Skills and Growth Strategy is to focus on high demand sectors and future skills to meet growing needs. Some of the programmes we Get Britain Working Plan, which aims to help more people gain employment and better careers addressing local skills gaps. Promoting employability and lifelong learning. It encourages ongoing learning to increase employment rates and reduce workplace inequality. Retaining and attracting talent. Promoting local career opportunities to retain graduates and attract skilled individuals back to Staffordshire. Corporate Delivery Plan highlights supporting businesses with skills needed. Strategic support for businesses, especially in areas like entrepreneurship, apprenticeships, NEETs, those not in education, employment or training, adult learning, jobs, careers, services, and the Ignite programme. Further education infrastructure growth. Advocates for government investment into future education infrastructure, including new college building, aligned with future demand and economic growth. Get Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Working Plan with our Connect to Work programme, implementing the new Get Staff's Working Plan and the 19 million Connect to Work programme that has already been built and ready to go before. Recent delivery, the stronger workforce. Employment rate is around 80%, and it is above the national average, but the residents with no and low qualifications and those out of work still need support. Stafford's Job and Careers SGC Services, the central hub for residents and businesses. Brokers Brokers who attended the jobs fair and business events, new web resources for young people and new employer engagement campaigns. Our West Midlands Interchange partners, with 50 plus partnerships, dedicated brokers now supporting the first occupier on that site, Carlsberg Brickvic. We supported employment pilots, focused on care leavers and adults with mental health issues and disabilities. This again will fall very firmly under the Get Britain Working Local Plan and our Connect to Work programme. This new Get Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Working Plan will deliver the key strategic partners and published Connect to Work. That's that 19 million investment will support 5,300 people into employment over a 5-year period. Carer advice and partnerships, that NEET rate at 16 to 17-year-olds has increased to 5.1%. It is below the national average of 7.5, which is very good for Staffordshire, but that is slowly increasing, and we must get on top of that before it becomes a greater issue. Carers and participation services, focusing on reducing needs and supporting those with health conditions. Targeted communication activities to ensure that young people and parents are aware of the opportunities available post-16 and support the services we can offer. New young people focused web pages on the Staffordshire Jobs and Careers site. Transition tutor programmes. 50% of leavers progressed into education training. 27% into employment. A careers hub. 115 of 125 schools and colleges have engaged, focused on disadvantaged, quality care educators and work experience. Add technical skills and apprenticeships. Started at higher apprenticeships up 46%. Our new Institute of Technology College in Stafford, which opened this year in September, offering higher level T levels and technical qualifications. It's an amazing college. I've already visited there a couple of times. Brand new, bespoke, state-of-the-art college here in Stafford. The Staffordshire County Council Workforce Development through the Apprenticeship Levy. There's 220 employees currently in apprenticeships. Our apprenticeship ladder, 230 startups in July 2025. The new Step On, Step Up campaign. Employer engagement through the LSIP roundtables in key sectors. Innovation and enterprise. Our business numbers have increased to 32,500 and the latest birth rate is stable in contrast to the decline we are seeing nationally. We have our Ignite programme that's partnered with, led by the Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce. Over 30,000 students have engaged since its launch, now extended to Year 9 students. These are students now getting career advice. When they move on, they get further advice going into entrepreneurship. It will lead into that dragon's den, if you like, investment. It brings out the best and the greatest in our young people coming forwards. The lifelong learning, the community learning and multiple programmes. 3,084 enrolments, 312 courses, 103 venues, 1,091 online enrolments running up to this year. The multiplier programme has 2,740 enrolments, that's 390 plus courses, 3,982 adults in outreach activities. Our performance outcomes, our skills level, 5.7% of adults with no qualifications. It's far too high. Level 3 and level 4 qualifications are just slightly above the national rates respectively. Our employment rate is 80.6%, higher than the national average. Our unemployment rate is 2.1%, obviously lower than the national average. Our economical activity is 17.6%. That is again below the national average. Our productivity, gross value added per hour, is £33.7. That's 20% below the national average. And here we start now seeing the problem. Our average annual earnings, 36,300, is again below the national average. Prosperity, that's gross domestic household income per head. It's your spare, how much money you have left over, if you like, what you have left in your household is at £20,986, again below the UK average, although it is growing. This is the skill shortage we have in Staffordshire. We have high employment, but low wages, low-level jobs, and this is where our skills programme will really change our county coming forwards. We will continue to future-proof employment and skills support, especially as local government reorganisation progresses. Prioritising digital, the future energy skills. These will be the new engines of tomorrow's economy. Working hand in hand with partners, private companies, businesses, colleges, universities, and the city and district councils. Summary of our employment and our skills key actions. Staffordshire Skills for Growth strategy is focused on high demand sectors, future skills to meet growing needs. The Get Britain Working Plan addressing local skills gap. Implementing of the new Get Staffs Working Plan, that's that 19 million investment into Connect to Work programme. Promoting employability and lifelong learning, encouraging ongoing learning to increase employment rates and reduce workplace inequality. Retaining and attracting talent, promoting local career opportunities to retain graduates and attract skilled individuals back to Staffordshire. Supporting business with skills need, strategic support for businesses, especially in areas like apprenticeships, to really help those on needs with adult learning, jobs, career services and the Ignite programme. Further education infrastructure growth. Advocating, advocates for government to invest in our future infrastructure to include new college buildings aligned with future demand and economic growth. In closing, we really do need to lobby central government harder than ever before. This will make for the further and the future investment into skills infrastructure for our county, ensuring Staffordshire remains competitive. To all of you here, this is more than a strategy. It's a pledge that Staffordshire will not just keep pace with change, but will lead it. It's a pledge that this will be for every resident who will have the opportunity to thrive. And I promise this, that together we will build a county that is prosperous, inclusive, and truly becomes the beating heart of this country. Thank you all, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you for that, Councillor Murray. Is there any questions? And Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. One of the main issues I got from that was the average wage and how we are below the national average. And of course, that's going to be the big thing, is trying to get over the average. That's going to be the goal. And I assume the best way we can do that is improving our skills from like basic to, you know, basic English, math, to actually higher levels of, well, not degrees, but higher levels of education. How is that going to be done? Like, to try and get over that goal?
Yeah, I've already spoken with quite a lot of businesses, quite a lot of meetings, individual businesses. We have some amazing infrastructure projects that long-term, these things have been going on for 10, 15 years and now coming up to delivery. This is where we must really now outperform. There's no point a great company coming with future jobs to a county unless they have the workforce ready to fill the job vacancies. And that's what we're working on. That's where we can bring up that level of education, those skills. Speaking with every single college, universities, I can guarantee now they are all more than willing to change and put on new courses that will fit any company that comes to this area. We're getting this message out to everybody. Some of the big things we do need, it's this point where we must lobby government harder. We have a huge opportunity with this 5,500. Originally it was broadcast to be the hydrogen highway. This is that future energy companies. This is the future energy providers of everything. Energy is changing. So we must be ready and skilled up. At the moment, they're saying they'll look into it, when money comes available, they'll do it. We've got to really push harder. This has the possibility to bring over $1 billion a year, well, about 12 to 13 billion per year. That's 60 billion by 2060, investment, GVA, to this country. It will be high-end jobs as well as that for all-inclusivity. This is where this Get Britain Working plan comes in, bringing people up. That skills gap where people are often forgotten and end up being a shelf stacker when they could be a carpenter, a plumber, electrician. These are the skills we absolutely need. These are the skills we can provide. In colleges like my own in Cannock, they're all our colleges right now are 105% capacity. In the next couple of years, that's going to be over 120% capacity. They're full. They are full to bursting. We're putting through a large programme to government as well to get funding to expand all of our colleges in the county. This will give us the capacity to fill those extra courses, to get people skilled up, to really sell the sizzle for our county and get that large investment in, get those large companies in, get those future tech companies to come to our county.
Councillor Pendleton.
Thank you for your presentation, Councillor Murray. I know and you have just spoken about this to some degree, about increasing skills and increasing the number of high-paid jobs. I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit more detail on how you're going to achieve that, please.
Already our central edge, that's South Staffordshire, along the M54, the I54, that whole central edge coming across. We have, the thing that, saying a little bit about Staffordshire being the forgotten county. Right now being built, we have Europe's largest rail hub being built in Staffordshire, along the A5, and nobody knows. How on earth are these large-scale investors going to come if they do not know it's being built, if the general public doesn't know? We must sell it out at a global level. We must let them know, not only when they come to look, that they have the assurance that the colleges and universities will put on the courses that's required to fill their workforce. That assurance has been given. With the future expansion of our colleges, to give that extra spare capacity, we'll be able to fulfil all of those jobs. We have the 5500, which runs right through from Derbyshire, going through actually onto the edge of Shropshire, straight across the Ceramic Valley. Really, really can bring in some huge mega companies are looking at these sites right now. And again, when the employment comes, the colleges will fulfil those courses that are required. JCB expanding, already investing a further 100 million in our county. Again, these will require further higher skilled jobs. We're far more than the shelf stacking county, that forgotten area. We have, it's the heart of the country because we are like a cardiovascular system. You're 10, 20 miles, you're on the main artery to anywhere in the UK. You're within an hour of any major, of 4 major airports. We have to our north, we have the Superport of Liverpool, with the West Midlands interchange coming, land to rail, straight through the Channel Tunnel into Europe. It's the ideal location to bring your supply chain in and to take products out. This is the future-proofing of our county. And this is where we must sell it out, advertise ourselves, make us known as we once were in that industrial revolution. We will now be the future tech revolution, and these will be paying the higher paid jobs. These will be bringing more companies, allowing companies that we have, and we have so many that nobody realises, to expand and to grow. It's coming.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the portfolio for outlining this. I think it's an annual report, so it goes back further than 6 months of this new administration, which you'll accept. I think there's a clear strategic alignment in this to the employment and skills and the priorities and the agenda around that for that wider economic growth, which we want to see in Staffordshire, which we've been seeing. I think it's been hindered by the national government now with some of their taxing measures, which, as we know, are squeezing businesses across this county and across this country. But I think there's a good partnership which you pointed out as well, over a long period with the education sector, with our brilliant universities and our colleges, which you've talked about. I think also your performance indicators are strong as well. We are bucking the trend on employment, aren't we? And the economic activity rates are good. They're above the national average and have been for a number of years. And improvements in getting them adult skills, people into skills and training as well, particularly those that have missed out in their earlier life, so later in life they're getting the skills. That's very positive, I think. I think we've got ambitious plans going forward, which we need as well for those, as I think you mentioned, that emerging digital jobs sector and also the green skills as well. I think there's a big part that this county can play in those green skills, taking those forward, as well as other businesses that are the core businesses of Staffordshire. They are logistics, aren't they? We need to, and that's what Junction 16 is about, isn't it, in Newcastle-under-Lyme, right at the end of the A500 corridor, A50 500 corridor, as it joins the M6. There's a sector which we are ideally suited to because we've got the M6 that runs right through our county, doesn't it? So I think I also appreciate the acknowledgement we've still got challenges, haven't we, going forward, particularly on the needs provision, getting people into apprenticeships and the productivity gaps, which of course is a national problem when you compare us to some of the the Far East economies and even the US as well. We need to close that gap. My question is, of course, we need funding and resources to be able to. We can't generate that through our local council tax. And of course, we're looking for additional funding from the government through different skills programs, etc. What contingency plans exist that we can try and plug that gap locally if we don't get some of that funding? Because as I said right at the beginning, the government is beginning to cut back massively because of the state of the economy they put us in. So what's the vision around that? Is there any local schemes being put in to keep the good work going here in Staffordshire that's been going on for a number of years? Thank you.
Thank you. I will be passing now this to the lead, to Tony Baines. First off, this Connect to Work programme, Get Britain Working. I've worked very closely with Tony. His whole team have done an immense amount of work on this. We really are going to outperform. This is fully funded by central government and procured already. This will make a huge impact to our needs range of young adults coming in that they feel slightly lost and no purpose. It will change that attitude and will give those skill levels up. Like I say, I always remember the old Harry Enfield, loads of money. You know, you go a fiver, who wants that? Dirty, fiver, throw it away. Now, this is some decades ago. For those that don't remember, he wasn't a banker saying greed is good. He was a plasterer. And just like today, it's those plasterers, those carpenters. Try and get a plumber today for less than a few £100 a day's work. You do not need to have serious, you just need skills to earn a really, really good living. And this is something I was quite surprised. I'm glad they actually quickly changed it. Keir Starmer, I'm pretty sure one of the young people actually stole my phrase. Because she went on, oh yes, small businesses, they're the beating heart of this country. I know, you little, you stole my saying, it's Staffordshire's the beating heart of this country. And we really will be again. But I'd like to give you that extra detail, all these funding programmes that are now coming on up. Anthony.
Thank you, Councillor. Some of the things that emerging and the emerging priorities that we're seeing coming forward, and Martin referred to, the college and the FE sector being full, and what we've seen over time is a shift in the last couple of years in the attitudes of young people and adults to improving their skills. So we're seeing more young people want to go away from traditional academic A-level route, for instance, in sixth form, and moving into college to do technical and vocational skills in everything from engineering, automotive, construction, electrical, science, technology, health and care. And that's placing a huge demand and a welcome demand on the sort of resources we have to meet those aspirations, but also to meet those key skill priorities for our key sectors in the economy, because that's where the add value is and that's where we know the better jobs are. So over the last sort of 18 months, we've been working with the FE sector and the colleges on a joint task group to look at what investment we need in our infrastructure to meet both those growing skills demands and our skills priorities. And we've just completed a draft report that looks at the projections over the next 10 years and where we need that additional growth in those facilities, because it is impacting on the choices of young people and making sure we get sufficient skills coming forward. And so we've got a suite of projects that we've put forward to the government of an ask of just over £100 million for investment in our FE sector, and we're lobbying hard with DFE behind the scenes. And we've also put in an application for revenue funding to support additional provision for young people who are not getting their first choice or maybe need and turn off as well. And so we're working with the department around that coming forward. And in addition, in terms of the adult skills and employer skills, we've submitted a bid for several £1 million for skills boot camps to be delivered in some of the key sectors across the area. So there are a lot of asks being put into the government around this investment, and we're waiting for, obviously, decisions around that, and we're expecting something to come out after the autumn statement. But there is pressure on the system and the amount of funding we received, and equally as an area without a devolution deal or combined authority, we are seeing that impacting on funding. So our adult learning budget was cut by 6.5% this year by the DFE. In areas with devolved administrations, that was only reduced by 3%. So over time, that 3%, if that happens again next year and year, that starts to become a significant pressure for us. So there is that tension in there. On a more positive note, we have seen with the Get Britain working plan and the work we've done with the integrated care board and the health sector and with the city in looking at future employment, both in bringing more people into the labour market who have faced barriers around disabilities or health, will push more people into the workforce, but equally we need to then improve the skills of the workforce as they move through. So you grow in workforce, and we're already growing from a very high rate where we've seen that 80% employment rate and a high level of economic activity. So we do need more capacity, but actually that then drives forward and meets the point Martin was talking about earlier around actually if we want to attract businesses and businesses to grow, we need that talent pipeline being invested in and that coming forward. So we've got a number of projects that we're asking for funding for, and hopefully that will support that ambition around that.
Councillor Tagg, a follow-up.
Thank you, particularly Anthony, for that, Tony, sorry, that response. I think you hit the nail on the head with the devolution bit, and that was going to be my comeback to Martin. I think there's, and we agree on this, don't we, completely, is that we are being deprived real devolution while we're having to do forced local government reorganisation. I'm still in the mode from last night. We had our council meeting in Newcastle where we agreed our submission. So temperatures were up, obviously, trying to protect our borough, save our borough. I'm not going to go down that route today. But I think key, is our MPs, isn't it? And I'd urge Martin to include our MPs in lobbying on this, because they need to ensure that those bids we put in, which are all brilliant, if we can get that money for those, that gives us that leap in helping people to get those skills and those jobs. And you're quite right, Martin, it's not all about academia or anything. It's about those skills that we need in the economy. And that's when we're building houses, we need plasterers, plumbers, joiners and a whole list of things. And we're not getting those. And that then draws in the need to bring in from outside of the country, which is causing all the social problems with immigration, etc. So it all links together, doesn't it? I think, which this government I don't think has got a handle on. So perhaps we can lobby our MPs, and I think you in your position as a county portfolio holder, the 12 MPs, I think, or 10 in Staffordshire, isn't it, should be, hearing from you and of our ask to government, and they lobby on our behalf when they're down in London. Thank you.
Yeah, on the devolution, we are absolutely aligned on this one. Staffordshire, single Staffordshire authority is required. We are missed out. We have no seat at the table. They do not hear about us. They do not see us. Therefore, it's okay for them to say no. If nobody hears from Staffordshire, no one will hear us complain. And that's the big point I kept mentioning about lobbying and shouting out about Staffordshire, because by making our voice louder, by shouting out everything that we have, and we have unbelievable assets, companies. I mean, some of the great companies we have here are making everything that this future economy will need globally. Our ceramics sector, people think it's cups and saucers. It really isn't. Ceramic is an element. Think of it more like an element, a powder. It goes on everything when you have companies that make it for your products that go on into food production, into your normal tableware, to automotive, your ceramic brakes, to nuclear power plants for the coatings, into space. Your mobile phones, every single one of your devices, your semiconductor, that little chip, sits on a ceramic bed. That's the ceramic industry that made the pottery so famous in the Industrial Revolution. Still exists to this day. And we have great areas in Newcastle. Keele Science Park, most exposed business hub and university this country has. How on earth our Prime Minister does not mention at times when he speaks out on the global stage about how Keele and some of the businesses in Keele Science Park are actually leading the world in arthritis, medicine, and procurement of medical replacement parts. It's astounding, they'll never mention, and that's the lobbying piece we have to do. And we have great growth, we have great high-level skill demands, but we also have a huge amount of skilled development to bring forward. And that will fit very firmly in that Get Britain Working Plan, this Connect to Work. I'm really excited by that. I mean, really excited. And you are right, our MPs must shout out about the county they are meant to represent. And I will be making sure they do that as well.
Councillor Hall.
Morning. Yeah, I mean, talking about upskilling and higher paid jobs, I think it might be quite a good idea if you took a look at junction 21 off the M6 and see the engineering, design and technology hub in Warrington that employs 6,000, I think, high-skilled jobs. I mean, we as Staffordshire missed that opportunity on junction 14, I would say, where we've decided to go for car parks and warehouses, which are not the same. So I think, you know, let's not make that mistake again, and let's try and be a bit more ambitious, which I think you are being. The second real part of my question is regarding the strategy that we've got now. Is how does it support? It's a lot of it's on new businesses and new employees, but the SMEs that we've already got in the county, how are we going to upskill those, or how are we going to focus a little bit on those? It's probably easier to grow those than attract new business, I would say. And also, when I just did a very quick fact check on it, I think there's only about 35% of those companies who are actually embracing AI, for example. So SMEs, I mean, AI is going to help their efficiency tremendously. So I think it's really about what's going to be in the strategy to support existing businesses, to upskill existing employees, to enable them to sort of step up and increase that sort of, the skills, I guess, and the employment levels in the county. Thank you.
No, you're absolutely right. We've got to look after our own first, the businesses that have already been here for years. Again, this comes out about that shout out, that forgotten voice. We have hundreds and at times thousands of different projects that support businesses out of the county council. And so few know these exist, these supports programmes. Our business growth hubs that go out and do hundreds of different projects that support businesses. We have courses on all the time, from computer, these helps your little startups and your companies to break through that glass ceiling into an SME. Our enterprise parks across the whole county, full. One space came up. I actually noticed it was advertised. I think it was the first space for some time that had become available. We have loads of support for all of our business that exist. We are working in partnership with all of our larger partners the amount of apprenticeships and to that Ignite programme for the entrepreneurship that then builds homegrown investment is something we're seriously championing. Did the apprenticeship awards earlier this year. Hundreds of awards to people, all apprenticeships from Staffordshire to Staffordshire companies. We need that to be expanded and shouted out again larger. We need that louder voice to let them know the great companies we have. And by bringing new companies in, it will help those expand as well. Their supply chain becomes shorter. They also then have new businesses to sell to. It works both ways. It's hard for people to reach out to a company that's predominantly down the southeast or permanently goes to the northwest, to the Manchester. If it's right on your doorstep, guess who they're going to buy from? The person next door. So it absolutely helps our own homegrown. And for those small and the startups, really going to start shouting out, done a full list already of all the programs we offer to help. And that's going to be shouted out again. This is that louder voice that needs to go out to help everybody, to let them know the support is there for them. And it's brand Staffordshire. It's that beating heart to let them know that, yes, you are part of that. That gives them the support, that brings in the inward investment and the global voice that lets them know, come to Staffordshire, we're open, we're ready for business. Here's the site, get straight in there.
Councillor Bentley.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Martin. That was brilliant. Obviously, my little story was I got a YTS I did in a copper factory. Wasn't quite bright enough to be an apprentice, believe it or not. And the apprentices went on, and they ended up going from the little copper factory that I worked, and some of them migrated to JCB. And it was always said that they were the best skilled people that JCB got over a 10-year period, and they were all homegrown in a little backward factory, if you like. So I'd like to see us looking at that. I'm not saying we can call it YTS or whatever, but some people just want a job. And when you start a job, you learn your skills as you're going through, and you're already being paid by the manufacturer, and you're getting there. So that's one thing I'd like us to look at. And the other one is, apart from phone calls on potholes, the other phone calls I get is, do you know where there's any little units? Do you know where there's any little units? So I started thinking about these little units, and we don't seem to have many. And the ones we've got are like in an old shed that used to be something to do with the colliery, or run down, or an asbestos roof on it, or an old corn factory. So when we do talk to the boroughs with your planning thing, can we look at highlighting some areas for industrial or light industrial? Because in my area, the last 3 major developments have all been on light industrial, and they've got rid of it to put houses on it or warehouses. So we've definitely got a shortage of these entrepreneurs going to the next stage, i.e. setting a little business up, because some will grow, some will want to employ 5 or 6 people, and some will just be happy with the van. And that brings me around to the van. I don't know if anybody watched the news last night. £40 million worth of tools are being pinched regular out to the back of workmen's vans. Well, we're not all workmen can park on a drive or in a garage. They might live in a small house. Have we thought about setting an area up where a workman leaves his van in a secure area, drives to work in his car, picks his van up, does his job and drops it back off to protect his livelihood, which is in the back of his van? But just something slightly looking at things different. Thank you.
I mean, the smaller units belongs firmly in the private sector to do, and there was many decades ago. They were everywhere, and like you say, they've now fallen into very much disrepair. A lot were built in the 80s. A lot of that is modern day and future technology has removed that demand, so it has become harder for those that wish to start up. One way I am actually looking at early stages to try and get new enterprise parks into Staffordshire, but to hit the mid-size. Because we have a lot of small sizes, they're all full, really successful, but there's nowhere for them to go, and they hit that glass ceiling again because they cannot expand. They cannot move up to a 50,000, 100,000 square foot unit, to really take that big step up. So if we made mid-sized enterprise parks, we can now form liquidity within our existing enterprise parks because they have somewhere to go. And now they are on that expansion route, and we can move on up. works very similar within the farms, but again, these county farms are very, very similar to the enterprise zone. It's a startup, helps them. The progression helps them move on, then they can go and expand and buy their own. This is legacy for family, generational investment that remains in our area. So there are some, but a lot of that stuff belongs firmly in the private sector and market-led demand. But we do need more. And it is early days projects we are looking at to find an area and the funding to build some larger enterprise parks, that mid-size, because I think that'll be a real game changer for our county.
Councillor Bentley, a follow-up.
Thank you, Martin. That was if you've got the same enthusiasm with this as you have with your farms, it'll definitely happen. I agree 100%. I was just thinking on these so-called local master plans, you know, building houses or whatever, we should be saying, well, and we also need so many square metres for entrepreneurs to, like I say, for the private sector to look at, because like you say, you're going to have the housing developers looking at these areas, but we also have I was lucky enough to know a developer who liked to do in units, and he isn't with us anymore. But he said it's so difficult, Gary, to get permission to do units, and I'll show you when you come to Cheadle the ones he did, and they were simple to build. They went up quite quick, but you've got to give them the area of the land to do it, and we've got to plan that, i.e. noise, stacker trucks. And then I do think, I know I'm wabbling on a little bit, the JCB, the amount of wagons that come to JCB delivering, which is brilliant for JCB, but if we had business parks closer to and feeder chains closer to, some of these businesses might think, well, I'll tell you what, I'll have a business next to JCB because it'll cut me transport costs down considerably. So, you know, I think even talking to JCB, if they've got any land behind their factories, that they'd be willing to do starter factories. But we're there, we're on the right length, and you are the man for the job. I've got no doubt in it. Thank you.
And JCB, we are still lobbying seriously hard for this 5,500 development. And if any of our MPs or government officials are listening, this 5,500 development goes from Derbyshire right through, continue west, right onto junction 16 of the M6, is worth billions to our economy every year. Billions. It will generate thousands of jobs, of high-end jobs, of skilled jobs. It will then give the capacity for the smaller ones for that supply chain to be fulfilled. It will help grow our existing companies all the way along through Derbyshire, all the way through Staffordshire. They need to get the finger out of central government because it's a huge highways project and it will make this country great as well as Staffordshire. That 5,500 is a game changer for this country, not just this county.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, just a couple of points. I mean, I was in my district yesterday, and a business asked me about that they were looking for a bigger premises actually, and they couldn't find one. So it's absolutely, you're spot on there, Gary. And just one other point: the sort of small copper factory that you were talking about actually produced the first subsea cables going to the USA and to mainland Europe in Staffordshire. So Thomas Bolton, big shout out. Cheers.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so I think this committee should note that Staffordshire County Council are doing a lot to support jobs, education and economic growth in our county, and would like to invite the Cabinet member back for a further update in 1 year's time. Can I have move that motion? Thank you. Seconder. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Councillor Murray. We now move on to the next part, which is the work programme, and Jacob.
Thank you very much. Just one update, and that is there was a briefing by National Highways on the 12th of November. There are two appendices to draw your attention to with respect to the briefing note provided in advance by National Highways and the notes of the briefing itself, and that committee agreed to an additional briefing later on in the year. Yes, that's it.
So that leaves us to the date of the next meeting, which will be 10 a.m. at County Buildings on the 29th of January 2026. And the next item is exclusions of the public, of which there are none. So thank you very much, everyone.